Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the top 5 scariest rides at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe because I put out new videos every single week. Lately it's been every single day and it helps me a whole bunch. Now let's get to the action. I am a certified Disney junkie. I lived down in Florida for a few years. I went almost every single week, so I like to think that I kind of know what I'm talking about. But today's list might be a little different than what you're expecting because some of these picks might just surprise you. Number 5 is Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pirates of the Caribbean is known for being a family ride. It's pretty tame and it takes you on a boat ride through some of the biggest moments from the movies. However, the beginning scene can get kind of spooky. The reason I put this on my list is because at the very beginning of the ride, you go past this scene where there's a skeleton pirate on a boat that's been shipwrecked and there's a storm happening around you, there's a bunch of wind blowing in your face, there's lightning striking, and then you're in complete darkness before you go on this pretty deep dive down in the boat. There's a huge drop, and I know that personally, even now when I go on that ride as an adult, I get freaked out every time because it's a very spooky atmosphere, and then you have a drop that's pretty steep. Number 4 is Space Mountain. Now this one is probably a little more predictable to be on this list. It is a high-speed roller coaster, and while that is a scary part of it, the biggest fear factor on Space Mountain, at least for me personally, is that it's in total darkness. So even if you're in the front seat of the roller coaster, you're still not going to know what comes next. There's a bunch of different dips and turns, and there are some pinpricks of light with stars that are in the background, but mostly you're in complete darkness, just guessing what comes next. If you are a little more scared about turns and kind of not knowing what's going to happen, you still can go on the ride. I would just recommend maybe going in the second or third row instead of that front space. Another sort of spooky time in the ride is when you're going up that first incline. You'll be going next to some astronauts and you think that you're going upside down, but it's actually just a design element. I know as a kid I thought that that meant the ride was going to go upside down, and that was kind of scary for me, but be rest assured that this ride does not go upside down. Number 3 is the Haunted Mansion. Now obviously the whole point of this ride is that it has a kind of scary aesthetic, but for me, the reason that the ride is a little terrifying is it begins when you're in this room and there's no windows or doors to get out, and they play up on that in the ride. They say, look around, there's no doors or windows. But even after you exit the room and start the ride, it is kind of just one of those spine-chilling rides. You have eyes that come from nowhere, you have spooky sounds coming from speakers behind you, there's a lot of light effects and digital effects, and while it is a really great family ride, it is something that might be a little scary for people. Number 2 is the Astro Orbiter. Now, I don't hear many people talking about this ride. It is always super busy when you go to the park, so clearly people see it and want to go on it, but it is one of the lesser known attractions. Now what happens in this ride is you go up an elevator to the top of a platform in Tomorrowland, and then it's similar to sort of your Dumbo experience, your Carpets of Aladdin. However, you're super high up in the air and there's a bunch of planets rotating around you. Now for me, when I go on it, the scary part is that it always feels like you're going to run into one of the planets. Now obviously I know that that's not going to happen, but with the adrenaline pumping through you and the heights and the spinning, it just kind of makes for a kind of suspenseful ride that personally scares me. I've only been on it a couple of times because it just feels like you're actually on a space mission. Obviously, if you have any space fans in your family, or if you really like space, I recommend it. And my number 1 pick for the scariest ride at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom is Splash Mountain. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is kind of an odd pick. It's known for being a family ride. There's lots of animatronics of different creatures all around. You've got foxes, you've got rabbits. It's adorable, right? And I will say that it is a really fun ride. However, there is a part at the very end when you're about to go down that huge drop where you go up the incline and you see these vultures that are talking about the happy place. Now, not only are these vultures terrifying, but they're talking about your imminent demise, which for me, even nowadays, but especially when I was a kid, was terrifying. You have this big incline that looks like you're about to go into heaven. You're going towards a bright light, and the incline takes forever because it's a raft ride, so you have the gears that are taking you up. It doesn't help that I once got stopped at the top of this ride, so it was terrifying because we were just looking down the incline and all the water drained out, so that was kind of spooky. But the biggest reason I think that this is a scary ride is that incline. Just when you're looking at the top of the park, you can see everything. It's just really intimidating, and eventually you go down the ride and it's super amazing and fun and awesome, but it can be a little scary when you're at the top. So, do you agree with my list? Is there anything that you think is scarier, not scary, that you would have put on instead? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe because I put out new videos every single week. Subscribe.